Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are cracking open a world that, at first glance, appears to be the very definition of paradise.
It's this shimmering technological sphere floating high in the sky.
Exactly. But it's all underpinned by a deception so vast, so meticulously crafted, that it functions as, well, the perfect totalitarian cage. We are plunging deep into the architecture of control that defines the world of Final Fantasy XIII.
Yeah, and it's not enough to just follow the characters' journeys. You really have to expose the system itself.
The system, that's the key word.
We've synthesized a dense stack of sources on this. The foundational mythology, the political structures, even the mechanical functions of this entire artificial world. Our mission today is to move beyond the surface adventure and really expose the architecture.
Specifically, the roles and motivations of the god machines, the fal'Cie, and the poor humans they branded as Lissy. So our whole story kicks off with that iconic, impossible image, Cocoon.
Right, this floating, self-contained continent.
And it's huge. The sources describe it as being roughly the size of North America, just suspended high above this wild, supposedly savage land called Grand Pulse.
It's the ultimate vision of a futuristic utopia. A technological marvel crafted about, 13 centuries ago by these beings they call the inscrutable fal'Cie.
But the first thing you have to grasp, and this is crucial, is that the initial tranquility, it's the foundational lie.
It is. Cocoon wasn't a natural development. It was engineered from day one as a means to a profoundly specific and very dark end.
This whole floating environment, this perpetual safety bubble, is home to tens of millions of people, and they're all living in perfect comfort, convinced they're protected by benevolent creators.
When in reality, they're just meticulously maintained livestock.
That is such a stunning reversal. A world that feels perfectly safe is fundamentally a highly sophisticated cage designed for mass sacrifice.
So we need to understand the mechanics of that system, the societal paradox that lets this colossal deception persist for over 1,000 years.
Okay, let's start with the physical structure itself. Cocoon isn't a solid plant.
No, not at all. It's a hollow, spherical shell. And the entire population lives on the inside of the curve.
Which means every single environmental factor, from the atmosphere to the terrain, it's all artificial, it's all controlled.
Exactly. This design allows the fal'Cie, the engineers, to maintain absolute granular control over every aspect of human life.
And when you say absolute control, you mean total cradle-to-grave technological dependency. This isn't just like advanced city planning.
No, this is a world where the very elements of life are managed by specific, specialized deities.
So let's break that down. The sun, for instance.
The artificial sun, yeah. It's a fal'Cie known as Phoenix, and it provides all the essential light, warmth, and climate control for life inside the shell.
So if Phoenix decides to, I don't know, take a day off?
The whole ecosystem collapses. Instantly.
Wow, and it goes deeper than the atmosphere. How do tens of millions of people eat and drink in a closed system like that?
That falls to other specialized fal'Cie. You have Carbuncle, which is responsible for generating all the food. It's a constant, renewable, artificial supply.
Artificial food?
And then the fal'Cie Leviathan purifies and provides the enormous quantities of water needed for that massive population.
It's total technological reliance. The human population has zero capacity for self-sufficiency.
None. If the fal'Cie decide to stop producing food, everyone starves. It's that simple.
So the key insight here is that the perfection of the technology is the perfection of the trap. The more perfect the system, the more dependent the populace becomes.
And therefore, the less likely they are to question their masters. It's, as you said, total technological feudalism.
And this whole system is governed by the Sanctum, which is explicitly a theocracy.
Right. They have appointed human representatives, the Primarch and the civilian government. But the real authority lies with the fal'Cie
Eden.
The Great Monitor.
Eden monitors and maintains all the complex operational systems from the capital city, which is also named Eden. It's like the central processing unit of the entire floating world. And since the Sanctum holds all executive, legislative, and judicial power,
The citizens have absolutely no democratic recourse. They can't elect their own government, they can't challenge the rulings of the human leadership, who are really just puppets for the machines.
which brings us to their most powerful tool of control, manufactured fear and the suppression of history.
The world below, Grand Pulse. Travel there is strictly forbidden.
And the Sanctum has instilled this deep cultural, almost religious fear of it. They depict Pulse as a savage, hellish land poised to invade and, steal their souls.
It's the ultimate other. The enemy isn't just foreign, it's literally below them, a constant physical reminder that only the fal'Cie-created shield protects them from chaos.
No wonder the people of Cocoon wouldn't dare go down there. Their entire culture is built on the myth of Pulse's inherent evil.
But our sources highlight this radical, frankly terrifying counter-narrative from the perspective of the world below.
The Analek stuffed in.
Right. These are lore texts you can find on Grand Pulse, and they detail a completely different creation myth. To the people of Grand Pulse, Cocoon isn't a utopia at all.
They see it as a ghastly and unclean viper's nest.
Exactly. They believe Cocoon was crafted by a devil figure, Linzai, who lured men away from the real world just to enslave them and consume their vital energy.
So the same structure, this enormous floating sphere, is simultaneously mythologized as heaven by those inside and literal hell by those outside.
And that manufactured animosity, that absolute certainty that the other side is pure evil, is the invisible wall that maintains the system.
You can't organize a revolt if you think everyone outside your barrier is a monster waiting to get in.
And the brilliance of the deception is that both sides, in their own way, have been successfully manipulated by the two opposing factions of fal'Cie, which we'll get to. But first, let's talk about how that fear is enforced inside the sphere.
Right, because the sources make it clear that this supposed peaceful utopia has all the hallmarks of extreme totalitarian rule, specifically its military structure.
It's an excessive level of security for a paradise, which is your first clue that something darker is at play.
There are two main military arms.
First, you have the Guardian Corps. They're responsible for domestic issues, law enforcement, maintaining order within the cities, the visible police force.
Then you have the far superior, far more specialized force, PSICOM, Public Security and Intelligence Command.
And PSICOM is solely tasked with defense against Grand Pulse. They are the elite, the heavy weapons division, the unit designed for fighting external high-level threats.
Which begs the question, if Grand Pulse is so inaccessible and dangerous, why does PSICOM need to be so omnipresent and powerful within Cocoon?
That paradox is the entry point to the shocking core twist of this whole world. The militarization wasn't for protection against Pulse.
Bro.
It was essential for the fal'Cie's ultimate long-term plan. Cocoon is, as we said, a sacrificial vessel.
And this is where it gets really disturbing. The fal'Cie's ultimate plan wasn't just to govern humanity, it was to farm them.
Correct. They created Cocoon for the sole purpose of accumulating a massive, stable population.
For what?
They intend to use the instantaneous death of millions of human souls, the entire population, to generate a cataclysmic surge of chaotic energy.
An energy surge? To do what?
To force open Etro's gate, a dimensional rift, and summon their creator, the ultimate deity Bunavelze, back into the mortal world, so the current world can be destroyed and reborn.
Hold on, so the gods built a perfect floating city, not to save humanity, but to gather a necessary death toll for a ritual.
That changes everything about the political structure.
It recontextualizes everything. That high level of militarization, PSICOM and the Guardian Corps, it was essential to this planned genocide.
Their goal is twofold. First, keep the population under tight control to suppress any internal conflict or revolutionary thought.
And second, and this is the really chilling part, prevent population drops.
Exactly. They needed a specific high number of souls for the ritual to succeed. So suppressing human conflict and maintaining order was paramount to ensuring the census remained high, ripe for sacrifice.
So the military, ostensibly protecting the people from Pulse, was actually protecting the fal'Cie's future harvest, making sure the human stock was preserved until the moment of slaughter.
Precisely. And if fear and military control weren't enough, the fal'Cie employed mass psychological diversion.
This is where places like the Carnival City Nautilus come in.
Yes, the sources specifically mention it's filled with frivolous pastimes.
Frivolity is distraction. It's classic totalitarianism, just dressed up in neon lights. Keep the people entertained, keep their focus low effort.
And they won't look for the truth humming just beneath their serene existence.
It creates a perfectly insulated world. Fear of the outside, totalitarian control on the inside, a total lack of self-sufficiency, and a constant stream of entertainment.
The fal'Cie achieved perfected information control, a beautiful lie that lasted for 13 centuries.
Okay, let's step back and look at the architects of this grand, terrifying deception. The fal'Cie themselves. We need to go into detail on what exactly these god machines are.
Fundamentally, they're supernatural, crystal-powered mechanical beings. Humans call them deities, and for good reason. They possess immense magical and technological power.
And their numbers are vast.
Estimates vary, but the sources suggest Cocoon alone has over 8 million fal'Cie, The total number across the whole world is considered incalculable.
An immense crystalline mechanical workforce. But they're not the original gods, which is a key distinction. They are specialized tools.
That's the most critical distinction. They were created by the god Bunaveli, the supreme deity. He then created 3 founding deities. Pulse, the god of the physical world.
The god of grand pulse.
Right. Then Linzai, the god of civilization and cocoon. And finally, Etro, the goddess of death and chaos.
So there's a clear hierarchy. Bunavelzi's the ultimate creator. Pulse and Linzai are his direct servants, each with a domain. And Etro is kind of the wild card.
Exactly. So the fal'Ci we see are the powerful, specialized servants created by Pulse and Linzai to carry out their specific programmed tasks. They're powerful beyond human imagination, but they're still defined and limited by their original function.
Which brings us back to the name itself. We found those 2 competing interpretations for fal'Ci. Let's revisit that.
One interpretation is rooted in Latin, Famulus Caelum, which translates roughly to sky's servant.
Makes sense for the beings who built and maintain a floating world.
It does. But the more fascinating interpretation, the one that's just dripping with dramatic irony, is that fal'Ci is a play on the English word fallacy.
A deceptive or false notion.
Given that their entire creation, Cocoon, is the ultimate false paradise built for mass slaughter, they are the living, breathing embodiment of the world's core deception. They are literally the fallacy.
That intentional ambiguity reinforces the idea that nothing in this world is what it seems, especially not the gods.
And to understand the central conflict, you have to grasp that the fal'Ci are strictly divided into 2 competing factions, each loyal to either Linzai or Pulse.
And each with mutually exclusive goals that somehow both rely on human destruction.
Let's start with the dominant power, the Linzai fal'Ci, the creators of Cocoon. They tend to adopt more graceful, sometimes even humanoid traits like the fal'Ci siren. Their primary programming is maintenance and order.
They're the utility providers we already mentioned. Phoenix for light, Carbuncle for food,
Leviathan for water. And another crucial one is Kujata, who provides all the raw power, electrical, and magical energy to run the entire sphere.
And their leadership structure is this complex system designed around the ultimate goal, the sacrifice.
Right. The core power source of the entire Linzai operation is Orphan. Orphan resides in a pocket dimension called Orphan's Cradle and is effectively the engine of the apocalypse.
And above Orphan is Eden, the great monitor we mentioned, the main operating system.
And at the very top, masterminding the whole plot from behind a human mask, is Barthandelus.
Primarch Galen Disley.
Exactly. Barthandelus is the most politically astute, the hidden puppet master who realized the critical flaw in the Linzai fal'Ci's core programming.
Okay, let's pause there. This flaw is the essential trigger for the entire human drama. The Linzai fal'Ci were created to maintain Cocoon.
To sustain it.
That means they are fundamentally unable to defy that core programming to destroy it, even though destruction is required to summon their maker.
Precisely. They are trapped by their own divine programming. Barthandelus realized that to achieve the final necessary act of self-destruction, they needed an outside, chaotic force capable of defying fate.
And that's where the Pulse Celestii come in, our protagonists. They were needed to complete the final catastrophic task that the Linzai fal'Ci could not perform themselves.
The ultimate irony. A god machine so bound by logic that it must rely on humanity's chaotic, unpredictable free will to fulfill its purpose.
Which leads us directly to the opposing faction, the Pulse fal'Ci.
The ones on Grand Pulse. These beings are loyal to the deity Pulse, and their appearance is often bestial, sometimes terrifying. Titan, Dahaka, Anima. They reflect the primal, wild nature of Grand Pulse.
And their goals are completely different. They're not trying to create a civilized utopia for a census count.
No, they're largely indifferent to humans. They're focused on the raw development and terraforming of Grand Pulse. They're survivalists and bioengineers.
So give us some examples of their functions.
Okay, so you have Atomos, the spherical, burrowing fal'Ci. It just tirelessly digs vast underground passages, creating infrastructure for the lower world.
And then there's Titan. Titan's function is, frankly, it's brutal.
It is. It focuses on the selective breeding of the ferocious monsters that inhabit Grand Pulse. It pits them against each other in endless, deadly combat to ensure only the absolute strongest survive.
Evolution on fast forward.
Basically, yeah. And then there's Dahaka, who roams the skies searching. The sources suggest, like others, it's looking for Etro's gate. These fal'Ci also constructed immense arcs.
Armories, right.
Essentially, yes. Armories where the strongest monsters are kept in stasis. presumably awaiting the call to wage war or serve Buddhavels in a new creation.
So on one side, you have the Lindsay Felsi, the perfect nannies, focused on order and control for a contained sacrifice.
And on the other, the Pulse Felsi, the indifferent survivalists focused on brutal strength and terraforming.
But both are ultimately working toward the same goal, summoning the Maker, just through completely different methods.
And the only Pulse Felsi who actively gets involved in the Cocoon plot is Anima. Barthanalis brought Anima to Cocoon to be the catalyst, to trigger the purge and force the creation of the Pulse Felsi he needed.
We've established the stage and the architects. Now we need to look at the mechanism that forces their hands. The curse. The Elsie. Unwilling human instruments branded by a Felsi.
They're the pawns in this cosmic scheme, but they're also the chaotic variable the gods required.
So what does it mean to be chosen, to be made a Lessie?
It means you're granted vast physical and magical power. But it comes shackled to a cryptic specific mission called a focus.
And the focus is never clear, right? It's more like a vision.
Exactly. It's designed to be interpreted, fought against, or embraced. It forces the human to use their willpower to solve a divine problem.
The branding process itself sounds intense. The sources describe it as a metaphysical process. The chosen person is pulled into the void, Etro's realm.
And they receive an idolith, a crystal shard infused directly into their body. That's the anchor for their power and their link to the focus. The pressure is instantaneous, because the stakes are this morbid, absolute no-win scenario.
Let's elaborate on that no-win scenario. Failure. Failure is a horrific fate.
Failure to complete the focus results in an immediate, agonizing transformation into a Seath.
A mindless, crystalline monster, doomed to wander in perpetual suffering. It's the ultimate consequence of despair.
But success is hardly a reward. If a Lassie completes their focus, they enter crystal stasis.
They sleep as a beautiful, immortal crystal epitaph, granted eternal youth, but trapped. Their soul is effectively imprisoned in the mortal realm.
Until the Falsi chooses to awaken them for a new mission, maybe centuries later. It's permanent enslavement disguised as success.
It's a tremendous burden. They have this incredible power, but they're constantly racing against time, knowing that failure makes you a monster and success makes you a museum piece.
Which brings us back to that fundamental question. Why do these all-powerful god machines rely on fragile, short-lived, chaotic humans for the most critical task of all?
Why not just use another Falsi?
Because the Falsi are too rigid. The core source material, specifically the words of Orphan, gives us the answer. The Falsies are created for a single purpose. They have finite, programmed power. They can't overcome their own code.
But humans.
They use humans precisely because humans dream, aspire, and through indomitable force of will, achieve the impossible. Your power is beyond measure.
That is the ultimate admission of failure by the architects. The machines needed the one element they could not program, the ability of the human spirit to operate outside of logic.
They needed human chaos to trigger a divine reset.
And just as the Falthi are divided, the Lessi are strictly aligned. And you can tell by the brand on their skin.
First, you have the Pulse Lace, branded by the Falsi of Grand Pulse. Their brand is an overlapping sequence of black arrows that slowly progresses to an open eye.
And as the arrows fill in, that means they're getting closer to the Seath transformation.
Right. And since they're associated with the lower world, they're universally reviled and relentlessly hunted by PSICOM. The moment our protagonists get this brand, they become public enemy number one.
Then you have the Sanctum Lessi, branded by the Lindsay Falsi. Their brand is the symbol of Lindsay itself.
And historically, the Sanctum Lessi were viewed completely differently. Individuals like Josh Katzroy or Sid Raines were often hailed as heroes in Cocoon.
As long as their focus aligned with the Sanctum's agenda, which was usually destroying Pulse threats.
It's a classic tool of control. Brand the opposition as terrorists, and brand your own controlled servants as heroes, even though both suffered the exact same curse. The societal perception is manufactured.
And the rate of progression of that brand, how fast the black arrows grow, is tied to the Lessi's mental state.
Exactly. The sources confirm that severe fear, shock, or despair can spur rapid advancement, leading to an instant transformation. Despair doesn't just feel bad, it literally pushes you closer to becoming a monster.
Which brings us to the great mystery and the symbol of defiance, the white brand.
Fang has this mark from the start, and later, all the protagonist's brands turn white.
What's the definitive meaning of that white mark?
It's the visual sign of salvation. It means the progression towards becoming a Seath has stopped, and the crushing burden of the focus has been lifted.
That they keep their powers.
Yes, It signifies a successful defiance of fate.
Is this purely an act of willpower or something else?
The sources suggest two explanations, which are likely intertwined. One is the sheer, indomitable force of the lessee's will, their ability to reject the destiny imposed on them.
And the other?
The other, more supernatural explanation is divine intervention from the goddess Etro, the goddess of death and chaos.
A wild card.
Right. Etro, who is often the counterpoint to the rigid plans of Pulse and Lindsay, seems to have intervened to burn out their brands, reverting them from their impending seeth state. It suggests that the ultimate lessee power is the power to choose their own ending.
So the black brand is the trial, the programmed destiny. The white brand is redemption, the miracle found through defying the trial.
It's the visual representation of humanity breaking the ultimate divine closed loop.
And that entire elaborate system of deception came crashing down with one singular brutal event, the purge.
And this was not a reactive measure. It was the essential, deliberate catalyst for the fal'Cie's final plan.
The trigger was the discovery of a pulse vestige in the coastal town of Bodhum, and this vestige contained the pulsalcy anima.
Because anima was from the lower world, the sanctum immediately deemed everyone in Bodhum to be contaminated by association.
And the sanctum, controlled by Barthandelus, reacted swiftly but with extreme linguistic deception.
Right. They announced the purge as a forced migration or relocation to Grampulse. They used euphemisms, calling the purgees brave pulse pioneers.
But the grim reality, confirmed by the sources, is that this was a pre-planned, concealed genocide. It was about rounding up and killing tens of thousands of people in a controlled environment.
The sheer preparation is terrifying. The fal'Cie had manufactured tens of thousands of custom-made, traceable restraint garments.
Before the purge was even announced.
Yes, this was not an emergency response. This was the final, pre-written chapter of their script.
So they put these people on purge trains, bound for the restricted zone known as Hanging Edge on Cocoon's outer rim.
They chose Hanging Edge because it was isolated, which made the covert slaughter easier. The only people exempt were those related to the sanctum or the military, a tactical move to prevent a revolt among the soldiers.
And Hanging Edge itself is symbolic. It wasn't a city. It was an abandoned urban center, a restricted zone destroyed centuries earlier during the War of Transgression.
It was a place already marked by death, the perfect, out-of-the-way spot for a forgotten massacre.
But this genocide was met with immediate, fierce resistance led by Nora.
And Nora wasn't a military outfit. It was a neighborhood vigilante group from Bodhum, founded by Snowvilliers. They just ran a seaside cafe and patrolled against local wildlife.
Their name, Nora, is a deliberate rebellious statement. No obligations, rules, or authority.
The Japanese root, Norineko, means stray cat, embodying their desire to live freely outside the sanctum system.
And the Nora members rallied volunteers from the Purges, including Mara Estime, Hope's mother. They fought PS Icon and massive military beasts like the Manasvin Warmick.
And this resistance came at a tremendous cost. Nora Estime fell to her death when PS Icon destroyed the bridge she was on. That single tragedy galvanized the resistance.
It was amid this chaos that the pivotal moment occurred. The Pulse vestige was brought into the war zone.
And inside, the six protagonists converged, found Snow's fiancée Sarah already turned to crystal, and were subsequently branded as Pulse Lessee by Enema.
Their focus: become Ragnarok and destroy Cocoon.
PS Icon, seeing the situation spiral, just destroyed the vestige. It crashed into Lake Gresha, and the energy wave crystallized the massive lake on impact.
And our protagonists survived, but were now marked with the Black Brand, instantly the most wanted fugitives in Koku.
So the purge failed as a contained massacre, but it succeeded in creating the agents of destruction the fal'Cie needed.
But it also inadvertently exposed the conspiracy, and that proved to be the Achilles heel of the entire operation.
This is where the journalist AOD comes in. She volunteered for the purge, believing the relocation claims were a sham, intending to record evidence.
And she witnessed the truth. It wasn't relocation, it was calculated murder.
With the help of Nora's mechanical genius Magpi, AOD's footage was hacked into the Cocoon-wide broadcast signals. This was the turning point.
It exposed the massacre and the fal'Cie conspiracy to the wider public, shattering that 1,300-year foundation of blind faith.
The public outcry was immediate and overwhelming. It garnered unchallenged public support for Nora and the lessee. It forced PS Icon to suspend all lessee hunting operations and shift entirely to mass civilian evacuation.
The ultimate irony for Barthandelus. In trying to orchestrate the perfect genocide, he inadvertently created the political force, fear, truth, and rebellion that guaranteed the surviving population would not return to complacency.
After all of that, the protagonists finally reach Orphan's cradle. They destroy Orphan, the power source, and essentially pull the plug on the entire civilization.
XIII begins its inevitable, catastrophic fall from the sky.
And the moment of impossible choice arrives.
Yeah.
The Alsi are faced with their focus, transform into Ragnarok, and complete the destruction. But the power of human will, it chooses otherwise.
Vanille and Fang embrace the transformation into Ragnarok, this mythical creature, but instead of fulfilling the assigned focus of annihilation, they use that power to save the world.
They erect an immense crystal pillar that erupts from Grand Pulse, crystallizing both themselves and the entire shell of Cocoon, holding it aloft.
This monumental act of defiance and sacrifice saves the lives of the millions who took refuge in the gravity control facilities.
With Orphan gone and the shell stabilized, the Linzai falsi of Cocoon go dormant. The era of the totalitarian sanctum is over, replaced by a provisional government led by the Academy.
And life changes drastically. The former citizens of the floating world have to relocate to Grand Pulse, the hell they were taught to fear. They found new settlements like New Bodom.
And you see the crucial lasting impact of Nora. The stray cats who refused rules and authority now act as guides, helping the former Cocoon residents learn to live off the land. The resistance group becomes the founding class of the new civilization.
But even salvation comes with a recurring threat. Cocoon's massive crystallized shell remained unstable.
Right. This led to a new effort by the Academy, guided by Hope Time, to create a man-made falsi, known as Adam, to re-levitate the structure.
And he used the Oracle Drive, a repository of cosmic knowledge, to figure out what to do.
And the knowledge revealed a familiar, horrifying truth. Adam, upon becoming sentient, would inevitably repeat the same cycle of control, enslavement, and eventual sacrifice that the original falsi had imposed.
That is the profound final lesson. The cycle of totalitarian control, enforced by supposed divine technology, is incredibly difficult to break.
Ultimately, Cocoon does fall, centuries later. Its crystallized remains merge with the chaotic energies of Valhalla and Grand Pulse to become part of the new world, Nova Cresselia.
The entire structure, designed for sacrifice, became the foundation, literally, of the next phase of history.
So what does it all mean? The final synthesis brings us back to that core conflict. The falsi's rigid, relentless focus on summoning their maker through mass sacrifice versus the falsi's intensely personal burden.
The entire world of Cocoon was a perfectly closed loop designed to produce a catastrophic outcome, yet that loop was repeatedly shattered by human defiance.
We've covered a remarkable amount of ground today. We saw the engineering of Cocoon as a hollow sphere, detailed the specific roles of the Linzai and Pulse falsi, and dissected the cruel mechanics of the Lansi curse.
We saw how the Purge, intended as the final sacrificial act, became the moment of revolution, exposing the genocide thanks to the quiet bravery of activists like Norara and journalists like Aodi.
And we leave you with this final provocative thought. The masters of Cocoon, the hyperlogical, mechanically perfect falsi, were unable to achieve their supreme goal through their own godlike power.
No, they had to rely on humanity's ability to dream, aspire, and through indomitable force of will, achieve the impossible.
So if the rigid, programmed deities relied on that chaotic human spirit to succeed, doesn't that fundamentally mean that even within the most rigid system of fate, the true chaos, and therefore the true freedom, always resides in the human heart?
Think about Nora, the stray cats. They deliberately refuse to follow any obligations, rules, or authority, even the authority of gods and a false utopia. If the systems of control are designed to create a closed loop of fate, is the highest form of resistance simply refusing to enter the loop in the first place.
And in a world predicated entirely on manufactured reality, is the greatest power simply possessing the will to believe in a different, unwritten future? Something to mull over until our next deep dive.